before you speak. And I believe you do that by pressing *6 on your phone. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
That's correct, Mayor Jones. Before I call roll, I just wanted to give a little brief instruction. For those who are calling in, your calls will be queued, and while you're waiting your turn to speak, you will be muted. You will be prompted by the mayor when it is time for public comments. To request to make a public comment, you will need to press *9 from your phone. During the public comment period, the clerk will announce the last 3 digits of your phone number and will ask you to unmute your call by pressing *6. Please clearly state your name for the record. Thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and call roll. Councilmember Brightigam?
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill? Councilmember Bowie?
Here.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Here.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
Mayor Jones?
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill? Councilmember O'Neill is absent.
Thank you. May I now ask Maria Stipe to lead us in the invocation, followed by Councilmember Brightigam to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask everybody listening to please prepare yourselves according to your faith. Dear Lord, we ask for your presence this evening as we begin the new year and the work entrusted to us by the citizens of this city. Bestow your blessings on our deliberations. May we have the benefit of your wisdom and integrity as we make decisions that affect the lives of those who live and work in our great Garden Grove community. Amen.
Thank you. George, can you take us away?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, George. Well done. Okay, at this time, we will open for public comments. I'll hand it over to City Clerk. Is there anyone either in the council chambers or on the line wishing to speak?
We do have 2 people in the council chamber that wish to speak. Our first speaker is Mike Trong.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is Mike Chu. I'm here to have some comment about the new amendment, SB 9 amendment, which is called 03. Let me spread out. What is the amendment? That's A-033-2021. If you have recall, if you remember a few months ago, I was here to oppose about city amendment about ADU to cut down from 1,200 square foot to 1,000 square foot. If you recall me, I was here that time. And my opposed were because the city lack of analysis or study, and the city this cut down from 1,200 to 1,000 beyond belief or the feeling, but no study. So after my feedback, the city this changed their mind to approve back to 1,200 square feet. I'm here again, very much similar thing. The state signed the bill SB 9 in order to fit the problem California houses. I love that. You know, I like to live in good environment, good a lot of parking lots too. But every amendment, any law before implement, the city needs to study and analysis to see what pro and con before they decide it. Now, in front of me, I have the city just temporarily pass the SB 9 amendment without I know, without my friend know, without nobody know what it is. But there's something very, very ridiculous. And I'm sure with you, any of you listen to this one, no one have done any study, but they based on the belief For example, the state allow 800 square feet minimum, the city schedule maximum. Any analysis? Zero. Now, the big important is, number one important, I don't think you guys understand what it is either. One of the requirements was any SB9 have required storm water management. I don't think you guys understand what it is. I've been through, I know what it is. This require for any commercial building more than 5,000 square foot only. Now you guys apply to ADU, or apply for SB9, where did it come from? I don't think you have any idea what it is. So I'm here to, again, I ask the city, needs to take a look again, what that means, make sure you guys understand this, what it is, how it works. But remember, Garden Road is very complicated city. You have a very small lot, very big lot. You have to do something reasonable for each lot. The big lot can be more, small can be less, something reasonable. But the long list, you guys require it very, very ridiculous. Require the block wall. ADU can build 1,200 square foot, no required. And setback 4 foot. And you guys require a lot of 20 items here, ridiculous. Again, I don't have much
3
time, I'm
minutes.
saying, this is ridiculous, and I ask any leadership of Garden Road have to study and remove this one immediately. And ask for the hearing, make sure the city of the Garden Road understand and have their voice like me. This is the first time I know. If I know again before, I will stand up already. I don't understand where everything here. But most of my friends, they have no idea. But when I explain, they say, what the hell? This is ridiculous. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, anyone else?
Yes. Tom Raber.
Hi, my name is Tom Raber. I am not a him, a dude, a bro, or a buffoon, and that's how I was addressed. The only meeting in November of 2021. Is Garden Grove transparent? As I stand here and talk, I see 7 empty chairs. Wonder why. So per the Brown Act, the city needs to send out the agenda minimum of 5 days before, which they did. The problem is the agenda that is out there for other people to get is different. So therefore, the agenda that you guys are going off tonight is illegal. Let's go ahead and find out about this teleconferencing. The Brown Act states that a quorum has to be at the original location, and anybody else that wants to participate has to have their address of their location opened up to the public. That was not the case here. Now you guys are you're going to be talking about Bill 361. Bill 361 is only in case of emergency. Are we in an emergency or are we in a pandemic right now? The question is, when was the voting done for this teleconferencing that we're doing right now? I have not found any documentation on it. You guys did not discuss it in December. So the question is, when I received the PDF on Thursday, but Friday was the day that it should is the 5 days before. The question is, when was it voted on? I got here extremely early, 5:30, and there was no cars here for you guys to have your closed session. So if your closed session was teleconferencing to vote to teleconferencing tonight, then therefore there is no meeting tonight. One, and the teleconferencing was never given to the public. 2, the agenda is changed. Pretty smart of me, huh? You guys got to think about it. So I suggest that you guys close this meeting down now because it's illegal on the agenda, because the agenda I received is now falsified because of the agenda that I picked up outside this door here. Also, you guys aren't here. You guys didn't vote before the agenda was given to the public 5 days before. So where are you? Where's your addresses? This right here, you guys did this for a whole freaking year. March 4th is when Newsom approved it. You guys did it all the way until April of 2021. And you guys are starting this bullshit again.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
There's no one else in the council chamber. I believe we have callers queued up.
Okay, go ahead.
Caller ending with number 600. Please press *6 to unmute yourself and clearly state your first and last name.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed with your
Can you
comment.
hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
Yep.
hear you. Please proceed with your
Okay.
comment.
Okay, this is Nicholas Dibbs. I called in before 6 o'clock for the closed session public comment, and nobody called on me. So I'd like to ask the mayor for 6 minutes instead of 3 minutes. In any case, AB 361 was signed into law on September the 16th, 2021. I've been attending almost every council meeting, or quite a few of the council meetings, since April of 2020. I've been bringing it up repeatedly to allow people to call in to have their public comments heard. I don't always agree with what everybody says, but I think every person has the right to be heard. And instead, I made multiple requests to the council. My council member, George Brenningham, didn't bring it up. He could have put it on the agenda. The mayor could have put it on the agenda. Any of the other council members could have put it on the agenda to establish a policy to allow people to call in. Instead, what we have now in the closed session, under the resolution, it says financial impact none. That's not correct, because there's a lawsuit of Silvino Roseno et al. Versus City of Garden Grove et al. Orange County Superior Court case number in the agenda for the closed session, and now there's a lawsuit. Why is there a lawsuit? Because this council unfortunately apparently lacks the ethics in doing what's best for the people of Garden Grove, and would rather spend money on litigation than doing what's common sense. I brought this up multiple times, said open your meetings up so people can call in. Instead, I'm like speaking to the wind. Nobody does anything. Nobody seems to care. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention would have been to establish a policy months ago, instead of having now the litigation to deal with, where the city is probably going to have to pay for the attorney fees. So Omar gets his attorney fees. He's the city attorney. And then these attorneys on this court case, they're going to probably get their attorney fees. And who ends up paying? The citizens of Garden Grove. Why? Because the council members and the mayor didn't heed the warnings that myself and others said, which was open the meetings up so people don't have to physically show up, because not everybody can show up in person. If you would have done this when I asked it to be done under multiple times, you wouldn't have this litigation. Okay, that's one point. So we need to have better ethics and better leadership. And Scott Stiles could have foreseen this also. He should have said something to the council and said, well, why don't we establish a policy so people can call in? Okay, the school district did it. Garden Grove USD, they had a policy where you could call in months and months ago last year. So I brought that up. But the council just is like talking to the wind. They don't seem to care. So I don't think that that's right. I think the members of this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue of competence. And the council members and the mayor need to start using common sense and looking for the ounce of prevention instead of the pound of cure. So, Mayor Jones, I just feel that this was not handled correctly. The governor signed AB 361 back on September 16, 2021. The council should have been acting on this way before, since that time and before, to prevent the litigation that's going on now. So this city seems to want to have litigation go on instead of using common sense and providing ounce of prevention instead of a pound of cure. So now the citizens have to pay for this legal case, and it's sad. So I appreciate your listening, and I want you to use this, the council members and the mayor, use this as a learning experience. So the next time there's an issue, you put on your thinking cap and foresee what might happen if you don't do something. Okay? What was wrong with my asking that you open the meetings up for public comment by phone? Absolutely nothing wrong with it, but you folks refuse to do it until you're pushed into it by the law and by the court case. AB 361 was established in September 16, 2021. How come the council didn't adopt this resolution back then? Why did they have to wait for the lawsuit? So these are just some things. I want there to be better leadership, better ethics in the city, and it starts with the council members and the staff to be looking out for potential problems if you don't take effective action. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, any others?
Yes, we do have other callers. Caller ending in 957, please press *6 to unmute yourself and clearly state your first and last name.
Council, Mayor Jones and staff, I have done everything I can in my research to help our community and our state on law enforcement. And when I don't get response and letters over the years in violation of the Brown Act of Traffic, Secretary has noted, and I caught it, and your park commission is probably great folks, but they're being narrated by staff who are not able to grow and expand the bills and laws that are federally, state funds I know about. And it's a deaf ear all the time with your traffic commission where they don't meet like I understood it by George. I heard you right last year, they don't meet enough. Obviously, this council has not the exercise expanding its horizon beyond your staff. And what you get is it's on my website for all your residents of Garden Grove. Social emotional positivity, it's graffiti, OCT, and blight and safety. It's evidence. And OCT should not have any other excuse for allowing graffiti and blight, which is against your code. It's against the mayor's wishes now and in the past. They've had 2 years of letters and emails, and they don't have a policy, OCT, for graffiti. According to the research articles, it brings youth into graffiti or gang. It creates more violence. And without green space and without the care of that, by October of 19, a report by your consultant, you have a rise of 55% in illness and also crime as well. And this park that you really were helping the mayor got trashed by the graffiti, by the memorial, and the light structure of pad that opens up in the Shelley Park. No one wants to walk it, according to what I'm hearing so far. They don't feel safe. There's no patrol, broken glass, 10 dead trees, flooded trees, and you don't have an arborist for your entire program. So I think that you need to find an audit for Mr. Stiles and his administration to see if you're going to grow correctly, and you have a road that over on Garden Boulevard and Western has no paint. And gutters are loaded up with water because they're broken from trees. This is Stephanie's concern about having water puddles. You don't have a system of boots on the ground, Mayor, and you know I've been writing to you. You know you have not responded to me to my request. So it's the administration and your council who wants more green by Lisa Kim, but you can't have it both ways. You have to be managing your administration for the principle guidance that you have and prior history of your chief of police back then, and Tyndale has set the tone. And former Mayor of Anaheim Gaelic, so then they prosecuted, the sergeant got hurt in an incident on the billboard. This is not a way to have your True Fitness have to take 2 ladies out to dump trash because of OCTA. When is you, Mayor, as a board member of OCTA, going to set aside and have a letter by the council to ask the partners in this situation to be a good neighbor?
3
the
minutes.
steel beams, the homeless, it's all because they are cutting the fence. When are you going to have OCTA? What, in April?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Craig.
You're mismanaged your city.
Madam Clerk, anyone else?
Yes, Mayor, we have caller ending in 120. Please press *6 to unmute yourself and please clearly state your first and last name.
Hello, hi, good evening, Garden Grove City Council. My name is Dulce Saavedra, and I'm here on behalf of Resilience Orange County. We're an organization that's working to build leadership of color that works towards community transformation, and we tackle a variety of different issues through different leadership programs, participatory research, and organizing. And right now, we're currently working with the ACLU, OCAPICA, and Get Rice to uplift community voices in the Garden Grove redistricting process. So we wanted to first uplift the Garden Grove, release their finalized timeline for public hearings for the Garden Grove redistricting process. So we're really excited. We've been meeting with some adults, family members, some youth, some students, and partners here in Garden Grove. And we definitely recognize the need for their voices to be heard and uplifted to share their thoughts and feelings about the Garden Grove maps. We've noticed that there is a potential of 2 strong Latinx wards in Garden Grove, and we want to continue to strengthen the AAPI wards in Garden Grove. So, however, we did notice that right now the locations for the redistricting process is only at the city council chambers. So we wanted to suggest if there's any way for us to perhaps include different locations throughout Garden Grove that might benefit some of our communities of color, like rec centers or schools like Santiago High School or Little Saigon, where a majority of our community is at. Also, we've noticed that other cities in Orange County have used very interactive tools and user-friendly tools for them to gather community input. So we want to see if Garden Grove will consider just making it a little bit more accessible for our community to be able to participate. We're super excited to have our community participate and share their feedback and participate in these calendar dates and times that y'all have already shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. We have one more caller. Caller ending in 627. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. And please clearly state your first and last name.
Hi, Council. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed with your comment.
Great. This is Roberto Herrera with Resilience OC, and just reiterating the comments that Dulce made. As the previous caller, I've been working with a resident from Garden Grove, Calvin, and just kind of going over the process with them over the redistricting. And just kind of wanting to thank you all for releasing the timeline. I think that was something definitely that community was anticipating. Just so, you know, we at least do our part to make sure residents are informed. And so that's kind of, you know, important for us to know. And yeah, just kind of highlighting the different communities of interest in the maps would be important to take into account the Vietnamese and Latinx communities. And just kind of how the new census data may like impact how, you know, pockets of communities are shifting. And, you know, I think just trying to do a more accessible tools for drawing maps, looking to other cities that may have, are utilizing, you know, creative tools and accessible tools for folks, you know, from a range of paper all the way to like more high tech, you know, trying to reach a younger audience as well as, you know, an older audience that just may want to just do a traditional paper one. And making the meetings accessible, definitely, you know, I was going to come in person, but, you know, happy that you all made it accessible online. And so, you know, because with Omicron on the rise, you know, the spreading of COVID, and trying to limit that is important. So that was something that we were going to mention, but you'd made available. So I also agree that you should go also, like, at least for, if considering like the in-person meetings, having different areas throughout the city be host areas for those meetings. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say, and thank you all so much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have others?
Yes, we do. Caller ending in 717, please press star 6 to unmute yourself, and please state your first and last name.
Hello, greetings and good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. My name is Victor Valladares, and I'm also here on behalf of Brazilians Orange County. Our organization works to build leaderships of color by community empowerment and leadership development, which results in transformative systemic change in Orange County. As my colleague previously mentioned, some of our partners include the following. At the ACLU, Ocapica, and Fiat Rise to uplift community voices in the Garden Grove redistricting process. First and foremost, I want to thank the Garden Grove City Council for releasing their finalized timeline for a public hearing for the Garden Grove redistricting process. As my colleague Roberto, the previous speaker, just mentioned earlier, I wholeheartedly would consider the locations or the venues be changed from the City Council, or have options, right, to have workshops in other communities of interest. One to be pointing out would be the one that's off of Trask and Garden Grove Boulevard and Harbor area. For nearly a year, our group has been actively engaging community outreach with members of our community, educating them about this redistricting process that happens every 10 years due to the census, right, and the ever-changing demographics in our community and with the housing element. So these are things that should be taken into consideration when we redistricting our maps. The council, as a governing body, sole purpose is to make the best decisions in which will be in the best interest of the Garden Grove residents. We have noticed the potential of 2 strong Latinx wards or districts in Garden Grove and the continued strengthening of the AAPI communities here in Garden Grove. Again, I want to thank the City Council for releasing the timeline, and I wholeheartedly would appreciate if they would take these suggestions under consideration. Thank you.
Do we do one more? Okay. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and take one more, and then we have to break for the item 3B.
Okay, we do not have any more call-in public comment speakers.
Oh. Okay, so does that conclude oral? I mean, there's no other speakers in any format?
No other speakers, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Okay, then we'll go ahead and close oral communications. We do have an item on our agenda tonight, which is a public hearing, item 3B. And by law, it's required that it be agendized and published at a specific date and time, and that time is 7 p.m. So we're going to go ahead and it's 6:59. Do we need a break for a minute? Is it that critical?
It'll be 7 in a few seconds.
Okay. I'm going to talk really slow. No, we're just waiting for 7 p.m. and we'll go ahead and go out of order to item 3B, which is a public hearing item regarding redistricting.
That's correct,
Okay,
Mayor
and we're
Jones.
there.
It is now 7 o'clock, and item 3B is the first public hearing regarding the redistricting process post-2020 census. We do have interpreters available in the council chamber. And I believe that Maria Stipe will give the introductory comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, the City Council is asked to conduct the first public hearing regarding the redistricting process following the 2020 census. As you know, after each decennial census, local governments must use new census data to redraw their City Council district lines to reflect how local populations have changed. Federal law requires that districts be nearly equal in population, and the Fair Maps Act requires cities and counties to engage their communities in the redistricting process by holding public hearings and workshops and doing public outreach, including to non-English speaking communities, To that end, as the city clerk just mentioned, we have both Vietnamese and Spanish translators in attendance to assist with any needed translation services. We've also offered and publicized translation services in Korean and Chinese as well. Dave Ely of Compass Demographics, the firm that assisted the city in establishing its first city council district map, is going to guide the city in establishing our district boundaries based on the 2020 census. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Ely, who's going to provide us with a report on the redistricting process, the 2020 census data, permissible criteria to be considered to create district boundaries, and the next steps for Garden Grove. So I believe Dave Ely's on the line now. So Dave, if you're on, if you want to share your screen and provide a report, that would be great.
All right. Yes, I'm here. I will share my screen. I have a PowerPoint, and let me see if I can make it look the way that it should. I don't know if this is, there we go. I'm going to go briefly through some slides. The material that's in these slides is mostly covered in more detail in the staff report, but I'm going to try and hit the highlights and maybe clarify a few things. The redistricting process is governed by a series of laws, primarily the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, the California Constitution, the Federal Voting Rights Act, and the California Elections Code, most specifically the Fair Maps Act. The federal laws require that the districts be nearly equal in population, and in practice, it's been found that if you have less than a 10% deviation between the most populous and least populous district, that is presumptively valid, and as long as it can't be shown that there was some inappropriate reason for the deviation to occur, the courts will accept the judgment of the city in deciding about deviations within that 10%. Also, each district needs to be drawn in a way that complies with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And primarily what that means is that the districts can't be dilutive of any of the voting opportunities or the ability to elect candidates for any minority group. That's balanced by the rule that race cannot predominate in drawing these districts. Race can only be used, in a sense, as a supplementary piece of information, or when it's being specifically used to cure what would otherwise be a violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act. And so we look at race data while doing this process, but race is not driving the process, except to the extent that it's necessary to avoid a violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act. California law, specifically the Fair Maps Act, requires that districts be geographically contiguous, which basically means that all areas of the city have to, all areas of a district have to be in contact with the other areas of the district. You can't have pieces that are disconnected unless there's a portion of the jurisdiction that's disconnected, but we don't have that situation in Garden Grove. So the districts have to be contiguous. The primary focus of the criteria in the Fair Maps Act is the preservation of neighborhoods and communities of interest, to the extent that communities of interest need to be kept together for effective representation. Sometimes there's communities of interest that would prefer to be split and believe that their interests are better represented that way, and that's perfectly valid for a community of interest to put forward as their primary goal. But in general, communities of interest should be kept together to the extent that's possible. And the district boundaries should usually be easily identifiable with major streets in general, or other physical characteristics that people can recognize, or jurisdictional boundaries that people are aware of, so that it's fairly straightforward for any person to recognize what district that they're in. And then to the extent that's possible, while meeting the earlier criteria, the district should be compact. So you don't draw a finger to a distant population and avoid a closer population, unless there is an important community of interest or neighborhood reason to do so. And the final thing is that that the decision-making can't be intended to either favor or harm a political party. So in general, partisan information is not part of any analysis that goes into this process. Like I said, the focus really is on neighborhoods and communities of interest. And this slide shows a few examples of what might be a community of interest. Obviously, recognized neighborhoods, organized neighborhoods which interact with each other to provide representation or to advocate for a neighborhood, are the most obvious kinds of communities of interest. But there are other communities of interest that could be based on land use patterns, cultural language characteristics, income levels, education, employment, economic patterns, and then crime or schools or other common issues. Basically anything which has a representational component to it can be the basis of a community of interest. And probably the most important thing in defining communities of interest is the public testimony about communities of interest and how they should be represented. I'm going to move to the existing districts. One thing that I would sort of point out in this whole process is occurring, just a few years after the city went through this process before. The Fair Maps Act was not in place at that time, but the process that the city went through easily met or exceeded the requirements that would have been in place if the Fair Maps Act was there. And so these districts were drawn fairly recently and in a process that is completely consistent with the Fair Maps Act. And so I think that's something that should be kept in mind in all of this process. The existing districts have not changed very greatly in population, so that the total population deviation of the districts is 4.5%, which is well within the 10% that is that is allowable. The demographic characteristics of the districts haven't changed dramatically either, which will be shown sort of in another slide. Most of the districts are quite diverse in terms of their populations, and we do have 2 districts that, in terms of the voting age citizens, are majority Asian, and there's 1 district that is majority Latino. Most of the rest of the districts are fairly diverse, so multiple groups. Excuse me. Sorry. This is a map that is showing the population deviations by district. So you can see that, to the extent that there is any pattern to this, districts 5 and 6 are slightly underpopulated, and district 4 is a little overpopulated, district 2 a little less overpopulated. But none of the deviations is very large, and there's no strong pattern across the city. Sorry. When we look at comparing the 2010 census, which is what the previous districts were drawn based on, with the 2020 census, the deviations have increased a little bit, but not very substantially. And so we had a 2.3% deviation with the 2010 census when these districts were drawn, and that has increased to a 4.6% deviation, but is again, as I said, well within the allowable deviations. This table, I'm not going to go into too much detail talking about, but this shows the ethnic breakdowns of the population and the voting age population and the citizen voting age population. And it also has some socioeconomic characteristics from the 5-year American Community Survey, the most recent one that's available, which is the 2019 ACS. And so there's information here that would go into consideration of communities of interest. I don't want to do a lengthy presentation about it at this point, but the data is there available for people to look at. And then the city has a website, which is the link is just the ggcity.org/redistricting. We have what I have on the screen is a flyer that the city has produced and is making available. So we have the schedule of public hearings. And one thing that I would like to sort of emphasize is that we are putting together some tools to allow public input that will be here, be on this website and available. And at the public workshop, a lot of the focus will be on collecting information from people, but also, providing instruction and some exercises in using those tools to allow public input. And I anticipate that we'll have some tools there probably by the end of this week. And that concludes my my presentation. If there's questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have speakers that we know are specifically for this item, or how do we determine that?
We do not have any speakers in the council chamber, and we're going to double check with our waiting room to see if anybody's queued up to speak.
Okay, great.
And we do have one person.
Caller ending
Go
in
ahead.
795. Please unmute yourself by pressing *6 and clearly state your first and last name.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can hear you.
Great. My name is Cynthia Valencia. I'm a policy advocate with the ACLU of Southern California, and I just have a couple of questions for staff or for the council members. I saw the schedule online, and I was wondering if there are going to be any virtual opportunities for people to either join a community meeting or to participate in the scheduled ones virtually, and if there is any way that's going to be developed soon where community members can submit draft maps, and if there are any attached deadlines to submitting draft maps, and how people should do it. And that's all. That's the only question I have.
Dave Ely, can you answer the question with regard to the draft maps?
Yes, we will have tools on the website that allow people to create and submit maps. It'll include both an online tool to allow people to draw districts and also downloadable paper maps and tools so that people can do things that way as well. On the schedule, the February 8th meeting is one where the council is going to be considering draft maps. And so probably in order to be able to fully prepare materials for all of those, it would be good for people to do to submit draft maps probably early in February, in the first few days of February. And I believe that in terms of the meetings being virtual, I expect that most of these meetings will be actually primarily virtual. There certainly will be opportunities for people to participate virtually.
I don't have it. This is Maria Stipe, and we're going to try to make opportunities available, just as we did with this public hearing, to allow them to be virtual. But we wanted to get the schedule published, so that's why they're currently listed as in person. But we'll make every effort to make all of them virtual if we can.
Great, thank you. Any other speakers? Or Madam Clerk?
Nope, I don't believe we have any other callers.
Okay. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and go to my colleagues. I don't think there's even any action on this, right? It's just to receive the report on the process and what the permissible criteria are to be considered, and to conduct a public hearing to receive public input. So we've done that. So we can just move on back to where we started, which was completion of oral communications. We will now recess and go to successor agency. So Madam Clerk, can you please call roll for successor agency?
One moment. Member Brightigam?
Here.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie? Vice Chair Bowie?
*6.
Chair Jones,
Yes, here.
Member O'Neill. Member O'Neill is absent. Vice Chair Bowie. I believe he's muted. He's not on the call? Okay.
Okay.
Vice Chair Bowie
Anyway,
appears to be on the call, but unfortunately, I'm not able to confirm that he's present.
that if you're on, can you try *6? Alrighty then. We've got a quorum, so we'll move along. We've already done oral communications. Go to consent items 2A and 2B. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion. Kloppenstein. I second it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Member Brightigam?
Yes.
Member Dieterwin?
Yes.
Member Kloppenstein?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowie? Chair Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Alrighty, thank you. Any matters from agency members? Seeing none, we will adjourn and go back to City Council, and that takes us on to consent items. It's recommended that items 2A through 2F be acted on simultaneously, unless anyone would like to pull an item. Any requests to pull? Or a motion?
Move the balance, George.
Second, Kloppenstein.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Kloppenstein?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Brightigam?
Yes.
Motion received, 6 yes votes.
Alrighty, thank you. That takes us on to public hearings. We already took 3B out of order, but we do have one more item on public hearings, which is item 3A. Madam Clerk, can you read the title?
Item 3A is introduction and first reading of an ordinance to approve amendment number A33, 2021, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving amendment number A33, 2021, a zoning text amendment to Title IX of the Garden Grove Municipal Code to adopt new regulations for 2-unit residential developments and parcel maps for urban lot splits in single-family residential zones in accordance with Senate Bill 9. And I believe Mr. Marino, the planning manager, is here to give the report.
We can't hear you in case you're muted.
Lee Marino, are you muted? Okay. Lee, can you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Let me try sharing my screen. It's not sharing. Oh, wait. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see it.
You can? Okay, great.
Yep. It's just showing your name on there. There it goes. Now
There-
it's on.
Okay. Is there anybody that can't see it? Because if not, if they have a printed copy, I can call out the slides when I'm going through it.
Probably best to go ahead and call out the slide numbers too, just in case.
Okay. I'm going to start with slide number 2. If I can, there. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and council members. The ordinance before you tonight mirrors the urgency ordinance you approved in December. To recap, Senate Bill 9, the governor signed the bill on September 16th of 2021, and it became effective this January 1st. SB 9 does create opportunities for infill housing density by requiring cities to ministerially approve housing development containing 2 residential units in single-family residential zones. Additionally, the bill also requires ministerial approval of parcel maps for urban lot split, provided that it meets certain requirements. I'm going to move to slide 3. For 2-unit developments and urban lot splits, the city again must ministerially approve the proposed housing development for from no more than 2 residential units within single-family residential zones, and we must ministerially approve a parcel map subdividing 1 residential lot into 2 lots without any discretionary approval, as long as they're of equal size or approximately a 60-40 split, and the newly created lots are no smaller than 1,200 square feet. Slide 4. So there is qualifying criteria for the SB 9 lots and the lot splits. They have to be in single-family residential zones. It needs to be in an urbanized area, which Garden Grove is. It cannot be located in any environmentally sensitive or dangerous areas like fire areas, which we are not. And the site is not a historic landmark or within any designated historic district. Slide 5. The proposed project cannot involve the demolition of any housing that's been occupied by a tenant within the last 3 years. Also, it cannot be deed restricted for affordable housing. It cannot be subject to local rent or price control, and it cannot have been withdrawn from the rental market within the last 15 years to avoid rent control. Garden Grove, the last 2 really don't apply to Garden Grove because we don't have any rent control units that are rent controlled. The proposed project cannot involve the demolition of more than 25% of the existing exterior walls unless it's permitted by a local ordinance or the site has not been occupied by a tenant within the last 3 years. There is qualifying criteria for urban lot splits only, and they are the existing lot you cannot subdivide an existing lot that's already been established through a prior SB 9 lot split, and neither the owner nor anyone acting in concert with the owner who has previously subdivided an adjacent parcel through a SB 9 lot split. For standards and limitations, SB 9 does allow the city to impose objective development standards and subdivision standards, providing that it does not preclude the construction of 2 units with at least 800 square foot floor area. No setbacks are required for an existing structure or structure that has been constructed in the same location to the same dimensions of an existing structure. Basically, what that means is, if for some reason there was a house that was demoed and you were going to rebuild it, you can rebuild it in the exact location if the existing structure didn't meet the current setback standards. Each unit does require 1 parking space per unit unless the units are located within a half-mile walking distance of public transit, or it's within 1 block of a car share vehicle. Short-term rentals are not permitted, and the city may deny a proposed project if the building official makes any written findings that the project would have any specific adverse impact to the public health and safety, which couldn't be mitigated in any way. For urban lot splits, there are some specific standards and limitations. The city may not require any right-of-way dedications or the construction of off-site improvements. We can require easements for the provisions of public services and facilities, and we can require the parcels to have access to or adjoin a public right-of-way. Slide number 10, for urban lot splits, standards and limitations, we must require that the uses allowed on the lot be limited to residential uses, which means that we would not allow them to have any commercial use on them. And again, the R1 zone doesn't even allow commercial uses. And then for owner occupancy, the applicant must sign an affidavit stating that they intend to occupy one of the housing units as their principal residence for a minimum of 3 years from the date that the lot is split. And this is only for properties that have been split with as an SB9 lot split. And as far as ADUs and JADUs are concerned, when a lot has been split through an SB9 approval, the city is not required to allow more than 2 primary units on the parcel, and it's not required to permit an ADU or a JADU when a lot is created by the SB9 split and it's developed with 2-unit development. So with that, the proposed ordinance, which again mirrors the approved urgency ordinance, it does propose a new chapter added to the land use code that will establish objective development standards and ministerial review procedures, as well as a new section in the city's existing subdivision ordinance, which also proposed some specific that specifically addresses parcel maps for urban lot splits. So I'm not going to go through all of the proposed requirements, but I'm going to hit some of the ones that are what we feel are some of the most important ones to hit. On slide 13, some of these include the minimum unit sizes. Minimum unit size is 500 square feet with a maximum unit size of 800 square feet. They are limited to 1 story, 17 feet. We do have setback requirements. These setback requirements actually mirror the setback requirements that are in our duplex triplex ordinance, which are 5-foot side, 20-foot front, 15-foot rear. If the units are 2 separate units on the lot, then we do require that the 2 separate units maintain a 6-foot setback. We have maximum lot coverage requirements of 50%. We do have a maximum hardscape requirement within the front setback of 50%. We do require landscaping and perimeter block walls, which also, again, that follows the duplex triplex ordinance within, that we have within the city in the R2 and R3 zones. With new lots, they must adjoin a public right-of-way with a 25-foot street frontage, and we do also require minimum storage spaces within the units. Some additional requirements that the code amendment is proposing. We do limit lots created by urban lot splits to having 2 housing units. It does limit separate conveyance of units on the same lot. It does clarify that SB9 projects are subject to development impact fees. They're also subject to the replacement housing obligations imposed by the Housing Crisis Act. And it does also authorize the city engineer to interpret and establish guidance and procedures for the processing, approving, and finalizing of parcel maps for urban lot splits. So on slide 15 is some prior actions before you tonight. What we did was we took we had a discussion with the Planning Commission on November 18th to discuss SB9. Then on December 2nd, the Planning Commission did adopt a resolution recommending City Council adopt an ordinance approving amendment number A 033 2021, which is before you. On December 13th of 2021, we did create a web page, and that's uploaded and it became live on that date. And then on December 14th, City Council did adopt an SB 9 urgency ordinance as a temporary measure until a permanent ordinance is approved. With that, staff would recommend that the City Council conduct a public hearing and introduce and conduct the first reading of an ordinance approving amendment number A 033 2021. That would conclude staff's report, and Omar and I are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Lee. Before we open the public hearing, are there any questions or clarifications of staff before we open to the public?
I have Mayor Jones.
Go ahead.
Mayor Jones, this is Councilman Bowie. I have quite a few questions that need clarification. I don't know if all the council members also have some. If they do, I just limit myself first to a couple questions, and then if there's other, then I wait until my turn come again, then I will ask the other question. Is that okay?
Hey, Beth,
that's how better?
do you want to do this now or after we take public hearing comments?
Either way is fine.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and open the public hearing, see if there's anybody else wishes to speak and add any input, and then we can deliberate thereafter.
Sure.
Okay. Madam Clerk, is anyone wishing to speak on this item?
We have 3 people in the council chamber who wish to speak on this item. Mike Twong is first.
You have to tell yourself to *6 and unmute.
He's actually in person.
Can I speak now? Well, thank you very much for listening to what my commander...
Madam Clerk, are you
Oh, my name.
there?
Okay. My name is Mike Chung. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak today. If you guys recall, I don't think you don't, because last year in March, and if you recall, you guys have the public hearing for the ADU. You guys cut down from 1,200 to 1,000 square feet. And that day, I was here with 100 people outside the building, if you recall that. With banner, with reporter, newspaper, YouTuber. We strongly against that day, because you guys are on Zoom, you don't see it. I was here the same place. I present 100 people that day. We strongly disagree with the amendment to cut down from 400 to 1,000 square feet, because we do believe that you guys did not do any research or analysis or started research. Now I'm here, the same position today. I feel that's day. Let me remind it. And that day I add the request. If you guys have any public hearing, you should let us know. One way or maybe send to water bill or anything, email, or let us know. We did not the same thing. I just scanned it a little bit about SB amendment, and we so upset about it. Here's the reason we're upset about it. If you see the timeline and the port there, very ridiculous. You create a website on December 13th, amendment approved in the next day. That's ridiculous. You don't give a time for citizens to speak up, to have their voice. Now, if you look this amendment, there are a lot of things ridiculous. For example, the state allow minimum of 800 square foot. You guys can do maximum. Where does that information from? What analysis you have done? What study you have done? What pro and con you have done? Can anyone show me what you have done to get amendment like that? Now, also the setback. The ADU does not require setback like that. You get required to 15 feet setback and 5 foot. You get from 5 to 4. I do not think any of you do any study or analysis. I think you are intentional to kill the SB9 to again the state bill. That's what I see there now. But if you look through that, I don't have time to go on a lot of things here. But if you look across this amendment, there are a lot of things ridiculous. Okay, let's say the state did not require the high limit. You got limit to 15 foot, 7 foot. but we need more houses. Now, you guys don't have anything to promote for parking space. For example, if you are the ADU, you get limit to 1 parking space. You're not allowed to build 2 parking space. On the left hand, you cry, oh, ADU or SB9 are called the no parking lot. But you guys don't give us opportunity to build more parking space. I submit the plan, you get, oh, you need 1 parking space. But the other right hand say, oh, we don't have parking. So what it is? What it is? Therefore, I say this is the lack of study, this is the lack of research. This is, I don't think you can have enough time to study what you propose here. But you guys, in order to amend, to buy time only. But there are no analysis. I ask all you guys think about it, read through, make sure you understand this. Even you put water, stormwater management. I'm sure some of you don't know what it is. Some of you don't know what it is. I do know what it is. But you don't know what it is. But you put on here, but you don't understand what you put for. I do request or do, recommend you guys take a look, postpone this agreement, give more time for public hearing to give their comment and give something make sense, work for what they say, work for the people. In fact, the parking lot or some of the big lots, like Garden Road, they have the.
Sir, can you hear me? Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. The clerk is supposed to be keeping a 3-minute timer.
Okay. All right.
According to our site, you went over. So
All right.
thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have others?
We do. We have 2 additional speakers in the council chamber, and we also have a caller in the queue. The next speaker is Chi Bui.
Hi, thank you. I'm Chi Bui, and I am also strongly opposed to the proposed amendment because I believe that I think we can all agree that we have a huge housing crisis now, and this amendment is trying to do everything to prevent us from being able to provide more affordable units to people who need them, such as a lot of families who work in Orange County that cannot afford to have their own space and they need to rent. And these units that we could potentially develop on the land are going to be nearly impossible with all the requirements that are being done, like the storm drain, like all the things that Mike Trung had just mentioned, will make it nearly impossible for anyone to want to build. I mean, if we can only build a 500-unit 1-story and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to build it, it's not affordable for anyone who has the intention to do so. And also, the more that we can provide housing for the people that would live in Garden Grove, it also brings in a lot of revenue because people who live here will obviously have to shop and contribute and pay taxes. So it's a win-win situation that someone who is very short-sighted is trying to kill by proposing this amendment. So therefore, I also request that you do further analysis and think about all the, not just your political impact, but your financial impact and environmental impacts to allow these proposed amendments, not to pass so that we can build more units to provide affordable housing for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have others?
We do. We have Quinn Tat.
Hi, Council and Mayor. My name is Quinn
Hello.
Tat. And I disagree with the amendment with the SB9 proposed today because I saw right here, you said that the maximum unit size is 800 square feet. That's kind of ridiculous actually because with ADU you allow 1,200 square feet and this one is like a primary house and you only allow only 800 square feet. And another thing is, it's just how 1 story. What can we do with 1 story, 800 square feet, which is less than the ADU that you allow us to build? If it's a single house, we split in 2 and we're able to build another, primary house. It should not be limited to 1 story. It may be 2 or 3, but not like 4 or 5. I agree, but not just 1. I disagree with the setback 5 feet on the side and 20 feet front and 15 feet in the rear. A lot of house, we cannot split, in half, like one on the left, one on the right. But somehow we have to split, one in the front and one in the back. And 20 feet in the front setback and 15 feet rear setback doesn't make any sense to me on that one too. Also, let me see. It's required there's no tenant renting that property within the last 3 years. That's kind of not make sense to me too, because the SB9 that the state said that you may not, like kick people out or, tenant out to split the property. Yes, that I agree. But you may not ask us, like to prove that there's no tenant lived there for the last 3 years. And another thing is you have to be a natural person to have a right to split your property. That doesn't make sense because some people, they just have their green card, they still have their houses too, and they want to just split and they cannot do that. So I suggest that mayor and council to do more research on this one and make this amendment more sense. It's not just listen to planning and then you make your decision based on, like what they tell you, but not listen to other people, who live in Garden Grove. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, next one.
We do have a caller.
Caller ending in 957, please press *6 to unmute yourself, and please clearly state your first and last name.
Council, my name is Craig Durfee. I'm listening very carefully. I'm out in the field, away from the COVID exposure, and it's becoming difficult to even define an address for emergencies. Standard way back when was we'd have some come down the street in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, and paint your curb, and then we're going to put this additional layer of condition for first responders because we don't have a policy in our city when they adopt this conversion to these other components you're discussing to require an address on their front of their curb, be legible. That's a simple one thing. The other is, do we have a cost factor to increase growth density for our park assessments and other expenses that put a toll on our roads, et cetera, when we're going to electric cars? This is not thought up very carefully. We're hitting the first part of it. Are we looking at the long term? I don't think you are. And I would encourage you to hold off and make sure that you have a cost analysis for the growth projection so you have the budget to meet the needs for all your first responders and your community needs and your roads, safety, parks, so you're matching the growth with your projected increase, AB9, so you're on target. Right now, a lot of things I see is mismanaged, and I hope that you will use good wisdom and horse sense to realize there is a cost to that increase, and I hope you will get some outside opinions because it is going to have a further, a more violent crime and mental health problems if you don't address it correctly. I hope you will listen to me and respond to my offer information of money where it is the state bills so you can be better. But that's up to you and the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We have no more callers in the queue and no more speakers in the chamber.
Okay, great. We will go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I'll turn to my colleague, Councilmember Fat Bowie, to start asking some of your questions.
Okay, I just unmute myself. It's difficult to keep mute and unmute. A few questions for Lee, and I will ask a couple first, and then wait for then give it to my colleagues, and then if there's none, or if it comes back to my turn, then I will ask additional questions. First of all, Lee, could you clarify for me? I remember during December, the council passed a temporary ordinance, and then I scratched the word temporary, so that we have something in place for staff to process the SB9 lot split. And that is temporary because, otherwise, because we don't have time to conduct public hearings and so on and so on. Now, is this a temporary ordinance in that spirit, or this is a permanent one?
This
I
would be
wasn't so sure.
This would be a permanent one, the one before you tonight.
Why is it that in December, before we close for the holiday, we pass it in a hurry as a temporary ordinance so that after the New Year's we come back and then we will be holding a series of public hearings to get their input, whether they support or do not support this, and then we will do study and then introduce the ordinance based on the study and public input. So how come suddenly we come back from the holiday and now we have this permanent ordinance in front of us without due process?
Omar, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to?
This is Omar Sandoval, Councilmember Bowie. So this item did go to Planning Commission. So we went through the regular public hearing process for land use revisions of the zoning code. As Lee indicated, the Planning Commission had a work session where they discussed SB 9 and appropriate regulations. Then they held a subsequent public hearing and recommended in that public hearing that this item be forwarded to the City Council with a recommendation to adopt this ordinance. The reason we had an urgency ordinance is because the law took effect January 1st. And the City Council was required to have this public hearing. Then in 2 weeks at your next meeting, you can adopt the ordinance, and then it doesn't become effective until 30 days thereafter. So we're just going through the regular process that we go through for Title IX revisions. So in terms of study, all we did is took the requirements of the law. We identified objective standards applicable to duplexes and triplexes in our R2, R3 zones, and are applying those to 2-unit subdivisions that are, they can be either duplexes or 2 units in one single-family residential zone. So all we're doing is applying current standards that apply to similar development to these very specific SB 9 developments. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's just the process we've gone through.
Okay, remind me, because we just came back. This is the first meeting. We just came back from the holiday. Now, when did we adopt a temporary ordinance? I remember that was not long. That was very recently, probably the last council meeting or the one before it. Is that correct?
That was on
Sometime in December.
Yeah, December 14th, I believe that was.
Yeah, it was December
14th. 14th.
Yeah, and it was based on the Planning Commission recommendations.
Yes.
That's right. I remember that. It's based on the Planning Commission recommendation. And during that meeting, I raised a lot of concern that I myself don't have enough time, and I don't think the city has given the public enough time to respond to it. And staff mentioned that because of the pandemic and the holiday, we don't have time to do that. And for the urgency, because when January 1st come, after January 1st, the city open, if we do not have an ordinance, people come to the city, the staff will not have the guideline to process their application for lot split. So I intended to vote yes based on that understanding that this is going to be temporary, and that we will do diligent work after that as the new year comes. I also remember that staff and us discussed during council meeting that I did ask how long the temporary ordinance will take place, and when are we going to conduct more study or more public hearing. And I would like it to be, no more than 6 months. But you, Omar, told us that there shouldn't be any limit, and temporary means temporary, so it will not be for long. And I was surprised to come back here and then nothing changed, and then we just take the temporary ordinance and change it into a permanent and ask us to vote on it. I think that's not right. We passed a temporary ordinance, meaning a very strict temporary ordinance, so that staff has something to go on and base it on. Why are we suddenly changing it into a permanent? We have a tool to apply immediately. So now, and we did that because we have time to do more study. So why are we not doing that, and why are we bring in a permanent one?
Mayor,
what's going on?
Yeah, this is Omar. Let me remind you, back in December 14th, we did not indicate that we were proposing a temporary. It was an urgency ordinance so that it can be in place by January 1st. And that ordinance, I also indicated that it would be in place until the city council adopts the permanent ordinance, which we indicated we would bring back for public hearing first meeting in January. Now, this is now a public hearing, and the city council has, various options. City council has the option to introduce the ordinance and send it for second reading. City council has the option to ask staff to do additional work and come back with additional information. The planning commission recommendation and the staff recommendation is that you do pass this ordinance to second reading, but that's going to be the city council's direction to us. Again, all we're doing here is making a recommendation. Yes, sir.
Omar, I'm sorry to interrupt. You mentioned that at that meeting, it's not intended to be a temporary ordinance. I remember that vividly because this is an issue that is important to me. I made the point on the December meeting that I did not have enough time to study the ordinance. And so I do not want to vote neither yes or no. And you have explained that this is only temporary and it's urgent, but it is temporary. And we discussed back and forth and we did use the term temporary, whether it is in the language of the ordinance or the urgent ordinance. I do not challenge that. But during the meeting, we talked back and forth on the nature of it being temporary. And I did even want to put a timeline for the temporary. I do not want the temporary to be over too long of the period. And you discussed that and you explained that it does not temporary mean temporary, so there's no need for a deadline for it to be expired. So I'm very sure of that. There are the recording of that meeting, so you can go back and verify of what I just explained. To Mayor Jones and my colleague, I do not want a high density, change our city, entire city to a high density, and I do not want that. But I think this we need to do more work. Something like this we need to do diligent work. We cannot just rush something through. For example, the ordinance that we propose, it may fit well with lots that are 6,000 square feet, 7,000 square feet, or even 9,000 square feet, which is a big lot. But it doesn't fit with lots that are 10 or 12 or 15,000 square feet, and we have quite a few of them in Garden Grove. Also, it doesn't fit well on quite a few things. For example, a lot of houses that we have only 20 feet from setback, 20 feet from the curb. We are now, no matter how big the lot is, we are now telling them that they are no longer qualified because in order to qualify, they have to tear down that unit and move it back 25 feet. So there's so many other things. So I do not feel comfortable approaching a permanent ordinance in. Even though I had quite a lot of concern about the current ordinance, some of which might be too much, some of which might be too loose, too little. But I went ahead and vote yes and adopt the temporary ordinance so that when the new year comes, I would have time with staff to study it. Now it's suddenly, the very first meeting when we come back from the holiday, I was given this ordinance to vote on. This is not right, and this is not fair. I have many other concerns, but I would yield to my colleague to ask questions, and then I will request the council to make an alternate motion or to table this to a later time so that we have time.
Yeah, Mayor City Council, this is Omar again, and I want to, I do want to say that Councilmember Bowie is correct in that there is a temporary portion of the urgency ordinance because we did include a termination clause in that ordinance, and what a termination clause is, it ends once the City Council adopts a permanent ordinance. So as soon as the council adopts a permanent ordinance, then the urgency ordinance goes away. It's replaced. So there is a temporary nature of that ordinance built into that. Now, as to whether you wish staff to do additional study, it would help us for the City Council to give us direction. Specifically, what is it that the City Council wishes to study? Is it that we should allow 2- and 3-story houses? Is it that we should allow, impose second dwelling unit standards instead of duplex and triplex standards? It will really help for the City Council to give us some direction if that is the wish of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. May I make just one minor comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Mayor Jones and colleagues, I am not opposing anything or want to push anything through or prevent anything through. The reason that I was surprised is that this permanent ordinance is exactly the same as a temporary ordinance. And so I do not understand the urgency to vote it on just on the first meeting when we come back from the holiday. So it's a following meeting from when we pass the other temporary or urgent ordinance. So this is the same. So why do we need to do that? I humbly ask for more time so I can study it. I can talk to residents, to colleagues, whether they are on this side or on the opposite side of this issue. There is no need to pass this on to today because we already have the exact same urgent ordinance with the exact same condition. So unless things change, let give us more time so we can look into this. That's all I'm asking for.
Thank you. Colleagues, anyone else wish to speak? Okay. I guess maybe looking for an indication.
This is a hot topic, so I humbly ask Yeah,
George, please go ahead.
Yeah, and I understand where Councilman Bowie's going with this. The urgency ordinance was enacted, and at that time, there was some financial ramifications for not enacting it, and some other issues that legal counsel had advised us of, and we rammed it through as a temporary emergency or urgency ordinance, I guess, emergency ordinance, and it's still in effect. I don't think there are any ramifications for not pushing this through tonight because the emergency ordinance will still be in effect. I could be wrong though, so I want to ask Omar, are there any negative consequences for us not going forward with this tonight?
No.
I personally, I think everyone on the dais has heartburn with this in one way or another. I mean, it is what it is. The state's forcing it on us. We don't have a lot of say in the matter. And, I don't have a problem with tabling it for, another month and letting Councilman Bowie and others who might want to get some public input on it. And, it's already been to the Planning Commission, so there's been a public hearing on it already. I don't know how many members of the public showed up for it or not, but, traditionally you don't get a whole lot show up for those things. So I don't have a problem with continuing this. It doesn't sound like there's any drawback if we do so, and it gives Councilman Bowie more time to, and maybe some others, to gather their constituents' opinions.
Thanks, George. I'd maybe just want to throw in for discussion, what do we accomplish if we continue it, if we don't take action on it tonight? What specific questions are left unanswered in the comprehensive staff report that we've heard both back in December and again tonight? Like, what else do we get out of continuing it, and what additional efforts, would you and or FAT need to put in order to satisfy yourselves to move forward on this? So
I personally don't need any, but I think from what Councilman Bowie said and what Omar said, some of the specifics as to, height limitations and setback recommendations and stuff like that. Maybe, I personally hate the thing. I hate that this is being forced on our community. I hate everything about it. I commend staff for doing everything they could to draft this up. I think they did a very comprehensive and detailed analysis and report on this. And, I know they had a public hearing on it. So I commend them for everything. But, maybe Councilman Bowie wants to bat it around a little bit. It doesn't sound like there's any kind of urgency at this point that we push it through. If he feels like he needs a little more time, okay. I'm obliged to give it to him.
Yes, Mayor Jones and Councilman Brattingham, thank you. The reason that I want to wait a little so that I have time to study every criteria in this. For example, maybe it should not be 25. Maybe we just do it 20 feet front setback, like we always have for our in our ordinance. Our ordinance require only 20 feet setback, and now we want to push it 25. Now, maybe there is a really strong reason to do that. I don't know, but maybe we shouldn't. Also, I do not think a one-size-fits-all criteria would be fair. For example, nobody wants to see our city turn into San Francisco by allowing 5,000 square feet lot to split into two 2,500 square feet lots. I never want that. But people who have, 10,000 square feet lot or 12,000 square feet lots, if they split into two, that's equivalent to two 6,000 square feet lots, which is the average size in West Garden Grove. I think that should be reasonable, and that doesn't cause a lot of problem for our neighborhood. We don't have a lot of lots that are 12,000 square foot. So I think this one size fit all doesn't, for me, it doesn't, doesn't sound like a good idea. So that's why I would like to have time to sit down with staff, and maybe we do we really do try to get the community involved. But maybe during the holiday, everyone was busy. They didn't know about this ordinance or this planning commission meeting. So I think we want to give them a second chance to give their input. And then after that, if we make a decision, I think nobody can complain.
I think you need to keep in mind that a lot of those things are codified into the law by the state. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. So just know that going into it.
Agree, George. But what I meant is we assert a bunch of requirements which may be sound and maybe not. So I'm just trying to absorb it.
Hey, Pat, can I put you on pause for 1 second? Let Stephanie go. I think she was trying to weigh in.
Sure.
I just respectfully, I kind of think we're just going to be beating a dead horse. I don't think we're ever going to be able to put this, fix the round hole into the square peg here. I don't think it's going to work. And so I think that we've done our due diligence. And for me personally this evening, I just think we're opening up a can of worms if we try to continue this conversation and make this fit into all these different parameters. So I prefer to just vote on it as written and as stated this evening.
I would tend to agree, and I would say just, did you say that was a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll second that. And for discussion, just say, kind of irrespective of staff's time, they've put together a very comprehensive look at this. I think you had a few misperceptions there, Fat, too, in terms of some of how you interpreted it. We're not legally allowed to artificially restrict to minimum lot sizes by the state mandate. And as Lee mentioned earlier, we're not requiring greater setbacks than any existing buildings that exist could be rebuilt within the same setback. So there's some things that are just sort of laid out by state law and state mandate that are covered in this. And that's why I say I don't know what we accomplished by dragging it on other than just more kind of headache. I'd kind of like to just get it under our belt and behind us so we can move on and deal with it. None of us like it. It's a state mandated thing that they're pushing down upon us, and we don't really have a choice. But I think our staff was conscientious and thoughtful in terms of how they approached it to add in whatever restrictions are legally allowed or whatever local discretion is legally allowed. So I think we're there. We've seen this a bunch of times, and both same kind of approach that we took with the ADU stuff, applies to this, where it's like, what do we have to do and where do we have local discretion? And our staff did a diligent job of that. So I'd personally like to just get this done and move on.
Mr. Mayor?
Anybody else besides the two who have talked a bunch?
Mayor Jones, Councilmember Kim Nguyen.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that I agree with yourself and with Councilmember Klopfenstein. I think I don't foresee this council, making this any less restrictive, and this is, I think, the most restrictive we could be, given what the state is mandating us to do. And I don't want to give the public the false interpretation that they have a direct say on how this is going to be implemented, because we're mandated by law to implement certain aspects of this to the extent that staff has already done the work to allow for flexibility or more restriction where it can. The speakers that spoke today were wanting to make this a lot more, or would want to make this less restrictive, which I don't know is possible. So I would just agree with you and Councilmember Klopfenstein that I think we've reached the end of our ability to stretch this out, and I would agree to vote tonight on this.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Steve.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with Councilmember Kim Nguyen and Klopfenstein and Councilmember Klopfenstein. I think we've been discussing this over and over, and then this, once again, we have been mandated, and the staff had done an excellent work on putting this together. We've been discussing this topic for quite some time, and especially the planning commissioner has been putting time to move it forward as well. So I think we can, there's nothing we can do anymore of this except, like Councilmember Coffenstein mentioned, we're gonna open a can of worms with more if we delay on this. Thank you.
Thank you. George, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with you on your thoughts earlier. You know, as much as I'd like to give FAT more time to digest it, I think we all have. And honestly, no matter what input we get from anyone, it's all I mean, everything I'm looking at on the slide is mandated by state law. I mean, there's
Right.
very little that we would even have any input over. So I think personally, I agree with you. I do think, you know, we don't have, you know, any urgency to act on this tonight, but I don't see that waiting is going to provide any added benefit for anyone either. We've already had public comments. We've already, you know, had the planning commission mull over it. Staff has spent countless hours on it. We've all been briefed on it. So I don't see that anything would change. So, you know, I guess I kind of agree with your perspective on that.
Agreed. I think we've heard kind of generally from everybody. So with that, we've got a motion and a second. Can we call the vote?
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Jones, on your comment and colleague comments, I don't think I have enough vote, but I think this is a matter of my principle. I wholeheartedly, you know, with all respect, I disagree, and therefore I would like to make an alternate motion to table this to a near future. I don't know if I have a second, but I would like to make that motion anyway so that people understand where I'm coming from. That I think I agree with my colleague that there's not much we can do. This is a state mandate, but I believe that we have inserted quite a few very important, very critical additional conditions, some of which make sense. A few I do not know. A few might not make sense. So I think it's not just that we adopt the SB9 mandate from the state, but we insert a lot of questionable conditions. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that in a way that in the sense that some of which is perfectly good to add additional requirement, although I am not sure. So that's all I meant. And I would like to make the alternate motion to table it for a couple months.
That I'll second your alternate motion, but just know we're going to get outvoted. So I'll give you a second on that. I don't see any emergency to push this through tonight, but I'll give you a second.
Okay, so we have an alternate motion. Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Brightingham?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen?
No.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
No.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
No.
Motion received, 4 no votes, with Councilmembers Bowie and Brightingham voting yes to table this for 2 months. Motion failed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can we please call the vote for the original motion to approve it?
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
No.
Councilmember Breitigam.
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes, with Councilmember Bowie voting no.
All right, thank you very much. That takes us on to commission committee matters. Item 4A, I'd like to ask that we continue that again to the next meeting. I did actually, this is for a vacancy appointment. I actually did get a name from 2 different colleagues. Haven't had the opportunity to go through and just sort of collect feedback on those from the others. So I'd like to just continue it one more time if we may. So that takes us on to ordinances presented for a second reading and adoption. Item 5A.
Item 5A is second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2926, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving amendment number A32 2021, a zoning text amendment to portions of Chapter 916, Commercial Office Professional Industrial and Open Space Development Standards of Title IX of the City of Garden Grove Municipal Code, establishing enhanced development and operational standards and modified parking requirements for incidental outdoor dining areas associated with eating establishments, restaurants within the commercial and industrial zones.
Thank you. Keep in mind this is an ordinance for second reading that we've already heard. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve. Councilmember Kim Nguyen.
I'm second it.
Klopfenstein.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Please roll call vote.
Councilmember Klopfenstein. Councilmember Klopfenstein. Oh, she was disconnected? Okay, I'll start. Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie.
Yes.
Councilmember Breitigam.
Yes.
And Councilmember Klopfenstein. She was disconnected. Can we wait just a sec?
Sure.
She back on? Unfortunately, I can't assume that she's going to vote yes, even though she made the second. We're going to just give her a second and see if she can get back on. She's back. Councilmember Klopfenstein, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on.
All right, thank you. Motion received, 6 yes votes.
Great, thank you. 5B.
Item 5B is second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2928, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove, amending Chapter 36 of Title 10 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code, establishing speed limits for certain designated city streets based upon an updated traffic and engineering speed survey.
Do I have a motion?
Move it.
I'll second. Klopfenstein.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Breitigam?
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Motion received, 6 yes votes.
All righty, great. Thank you very much. That moves us on to matters. And we do actually have 2 items agendized tonight are listed under matters. So we'll start with 6A. Um, 6A is discussion regarding adjusting city council salary as authorized by California law based on Garden Grove's population, as requested by Councilmember Kim Nguyen and Councilmember George Brigham. Take it away.
Thank you. I'll go first if that's okay, Councilmember Brigham. I reached out to staff and sought out support from Councilmember Brigham regarding this item. I believe that the last time the Garden Grove City Council salary was adjusted or set was in 1988, which is 34 years ago. I will turn it over to staff to discuss our options, but just summary from what I understood, based on government code, option 1 would be to have our salary set at $800 a month. There is a provision in our government code that allows for a 5% increase from the time that original salary was set in motion, which was 1988, which was 34 years ago. And based on the math provided to me, because I'm not great at math, it comes out to roughly $1,312.34. So if staff could just provide, or if Councilmember Brigham would like to make remarks first, then we can do that first, and then have staff kind of provide their feedback on this particular item.
Yeah, it came to my attention many moons ago when Councilmember Chris Phan was on the dais and he had brought it up. And, back then, I believe the staff had reported that the actual last time that there was a pay raise on the city council was in 1972. And then in 1988, I believe, or around there is when they added the ability to get on the city health insurance plan as an option. So I don't, and I could be wrong on this because I'm going back many moons ago, but apparently the pay hasn't been adjusted since the 70s, with the exception of being allowed to be on the insurance. And most of us have private insurance with our company. Some of us take advantage of that, but most of us don't. And so there really hasn't been any pay raise over the $400 amount that we've had since many moons ago. So the surrounding cities are all quite a bit higher. And if we were to move our salaries just to be at the state recommendation, what the state recommends, we would still be the lowest paid in the surrounding area. But it would at least help some of the costs. I know many of us are out of pocket every month. I know I'm out of pocket at least at $600 a month at minimum for being on the council. The pay doesn't really cover what we're required to do, and what we elect to do, as well. So anyway, with that being said, I'll let the staff report.
Really quickly, I just wanted to know, Councilmember Nguyen, that I brought this forward more so as someone who, when I first started off in council, I was only 25 years old. I was renting a one-bedroom apartment that was more than 50% of my salary at the time, and running for office is really expensive, and it is also really expensive to serve on council. If you have a full-time job, you have other obligations, your time is limited, but you do devote a lot of hours. This is a very intense sort of voluntary job that we all, agreed to participate in. But I think that increasing the salary for council, this would still be very much below minimum wage. But I think increasing it to some degree would also incentivize other residents who may have considered running for council to serve and, help the community, but oftentimes shy away because it's just not feasible for them financially. That this might incentivize a larger group of folks who have never, who have shied away from running to be able to do so. I think that, based on the time that we spend preparing for meetings, the meetings that we attend outside of council, events that we attend, the independent research that we do for particular items, it all really does add up. And I don't think what we're asking for is unreasonable. I think it's on par with other cities. I believe staff provided a list of all the cities, all their pay. The city of Anaheim council members receive $1,500 plus a $300 auto stipend. Santa Ana receives $1,000 plus a $500 auto stipend. Irvine is $880 with a $715 stipend for auto. Huntington Beach, $1,512. They do not have an auto stipend from what I can see, but they are the closest to us as far as population. So with that being said, we could turn it over to staff just to provide some more legal and parameters around this. That would be appreciated.
So, Mayor, members of the City Council, Omar Sandoval, City Attorney, I just want to point out, the law requirements. Government Code 36516 has two provisions. Number one, it has a maximum amount of compensation for council members based on the size of the city. So for cities between 150,000 up to 250,000 in population, the maximum salary in the code is $800 per month. There is a subsection of that code section that provides that notwithstanding that maximum amount, that amount can be increased by the amount of the up to 5% for each calendar year from the operative date of the last adjustment. So it's not when it was last increased, but when it was last adjusted. And Councilman Bradigan is correct. There was, I believe the salary back in '74 was $600, but in 1988 it was reduced to $480. But that's the last adjustment. So if we're going to use, the base 800, that's the number. Or if we're going to use the 5% allowed by the code going back to 1988, then that number comes out to a little bit over $1,300. Now, what that means is that you could change your salary up to $1,300 utilizing the 5%. You can set it any number between the current 480 to up to 1,300. There's a separate provision, separate code section that says that a mayor can be provided in addition to the compensation of the council, because the mayor is considered a member of the council. They can be provided additional compensation in addition to that which he or she receives as a member of the council. Most cities have between $150 to $200 additional compensation for the mayor. So that's what the spreadsheet that's provided to you indicates. And then the last comment on state law, it provides that any increased compensation or adjusted compensation for the city council can only become effective when one council member commences a new term in office. So it requires an ordinance, and the stipulation in the ordinance would state that any adjustment would become effective on the day that a council member starts a new term of office. So it would be sometime after the election. That's all the comments I have based on state law, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I do
Mayor,
have
if I
one
could
more
quickly.
Go ahead, Steph.
I'm in support of this and fully support agendizing this. I guess my question is, do we have to set that number, monetary amount tonight? Or are we just this evening saying that we want to agendize this as an action item for the next meeting? Or do we need to figure out what it is that we're going to be voting on? I just want some clarification.
Really quickly, this is Omar again. If the council does agree to agendize it, normally when you direct us to agendize something, we'll come back with a staff report and an action item. If it's to adjust the compensation, that action item should be an ordinance, and it would help me if the council gives me direction as to what that ordinance would provide, what the adjustment would be.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, like I said, it's the pay has not increased since 1974, and you know, we are. I mean, it's pretty laughable when you look at what all of our surrounding cities are making in compensation, and at least they're getting their expenses paid. You know, I know the mayor puts in many hours. I put in everybody on this dais. We have to take vacation and comp time off of work to attend meetings, which costs us money. You know, we're doing things for the community. We're engaged in, and so I just think it's about time. I personally don't think we need to take it to the max, you know, 1,300. But you know, I don't know if Councilman Nguyen is, you know, but even if we were to put it up, let's say $1,000 to $1,000 a month and $1,200 for the mayor, we would still be the lowest paid city in the surrounding area by far. So I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what I was thinking, that would keep us well within the state recommendations, and and it would still keep us, you know, not extraordinary, you know, high. We're still the lowest in the area, with the exception of a couple real small cities that have populations under like 30,000 or something. But anyway, that's my recommendation. You guys, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
I guess, to be personally frank, as a mother with a young child, I've been on the council now for 5 years. I think when I started, my daughter was 4. Childcare alone probably cost me more than $1,300. So I really don't have a problem with that amount. I think I'm more comfortable with going there personally.
Mayor Jones and colleagues, can I chime in?
Go ahead, Pat.
Yes, I am in support of this. I remember back in I think 2015 or 16, Councilman Chris Phan brought this up, and we had the council meeting, and we talked about it. And everyone was reluctant because no council member want to, you know, be flagged as, you know, give themselves a raise. And that is probably the reason why since 1972, it has not been adjusted. Believe it, 50 years without being adjusted, because no one dare to be flagged as they give themselves a raise. Not only that, if Omar just mentioned, if I heard it correctly, not only is not increased, but in 1988, it was reduced. Probably because the city was facing hardship, and after that, it never been bring back to the level before it was reduced, because no one there to be flagged as give themselves a raise. I think that we are all, you know, wise enough to do the right thing and not too worried about being labeled this or labeled that. I think I know that many of you put in a lot of time, but I and you do not want to scrap that. You also spend your own money being a council, not just to run for office, because we have to. Nobody pushes us to run for office. We run for office, and so we have to, you know, accept the financial aspect of it. But once you become a city council, you spend a lot more money of your own, because you have to drive around, meeting constituents, and gas is at $4 a gallon. It does put tremendous hardship on their family. So I would think that even 1,000 would not be enough to cover the additional expense for some of the busy councilmen or council members. So I would feel comfortable to put, you know, $1,000 for city council and $1,200 for the mayor. I think it's fair, and it's a right step in the right direction. Unless other members think that, I think that it's still not enough, but at least it's the right direction.
Mayor
I just want to
Jones?
know where you're getting
Mayor-
gas for $4.
Mayor-
Mayor Jones, this is Councilmember Kim Nguyen. I just wanted to chime in really quickly to say that, I didn't even factor in childcare, so thank you, Councilmember Klopfenstein, for bringing that up. That's another expense I imagine you accrue while you attend meetings and have to, plan separately for caretaking. With that, I would make the motion to have an ordinance to adjust this council salary to the $1312.34, and then in addition, the other ordinance to add $200 to that for the mayor.
I'll second that, Kim.
By the way, we're not taking action on this tonight, so let me just be clear. We're only taking action tonight to, let me just clarify. We're only taking action tonight to agendize it at the next meeting, and we're just sort of giving direction to staff about where we're trying to go. Is that correct? I mean,
Yes.
we shouldn't be voting
But
on it.
he wanted that. No, right.
I think that the motion is correct, so I can come back with an ordinance that has that stipulation. The council can deliberate and decide to pass it at that time.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry, I went into farm mode there for a minute.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Well, I just want to chime in a little bit. I know, I'm in line with everybody. We got elected as a council member because we want to make a difference and positive impact. And I guarantee none of us who have run for office, especially all of us and here in the dais, go in for the money. And I totally agree with every single one of you. And thank you, Councilmember George and Councilmember Kim Nguyen, for bringing it up. And, like I said, I just like Councilmember Klopfenstein, I have a young kid too, and we've been going to a lot of events, a lot of meetings, or meeting our constituents during the daytime. And I mean, there's something, our commitment, we commit to it, to the job, so I can, I support, I don't really care about how much money that we're gonna go for what the amount is. But as I see, we compare with other cities, Garden definitely was the lowest. The money for the council members, the compensation. But I'm going to leave it at that to decide on the amount. But I think it's about time that we can, considering this, and hopefully, for the next future council member, going to help them a little bit. And I leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one more comment.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of important to note on this, and Omar kind of summed it up at the last bullet point he had. Should we vote on a pay increase? It doesn't take effect until next December, after the next election. Many of us may or may not be here at that point, and so it kind of takes a lot of integrity and stuff to know when you're not going to be here, but you're doing it for the future and the future council. It's kind of a, cool legacy type of thing, but it's just the right thing to do at this point. I mean, it's laughable. We're all out of pocket so much money, and I don't think the public realizes it. I think if they knew how much we were actually getting, they would probably cry for us. But anyway, with that being said, I'm favorable. I don't know that we want to push it all the way to the cents and the, 1,322 and 16 cents. I maybe just round it off to 1,300. Even if we did that, we're going to still be the lowest paid large city in the county. So, just food for thought.
Okay, do we actually need a motion to agendize this next time, or do you have enough direction?
No, we need a motion to agendize.
Okay, can we just, I think we've probably covered it enough, right? Can we just get we do already have a motion? Do we have a second?
And a second. I seconded it. Yep.
Okay, got it. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and roll call vote to agendize this at the next meeting.
Councilmember Klopfenstein?
Yes.
Councilmember Brightigam?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Okay, item 6B, and this is a ERP project subcommittee update provided by Councilmember Bowie.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Mayor
Scott.
Jones. Okay, thank you, Mayor Jones. And I don't know if Patricia Song is still with us. She might want to chime in. But I just want to briefly report a very, very good story. The ERP project had been a great success, to staff, IT, as well as business community have been working with the consultants and have delivered the project on time, under budget, and they went through the production life at the end of the year, taking into account the year-end, very complex year-end computation. The output was really, really excellent. Only a very small percentage of the employee pay was need a little adjustment within tens of dollars. Everything else was a great success. We did employee information, salary table, position list, benefit, matrix, payroll calendar, and a leave balance. Everything was done right. And less than $10 was cost due to a routing difference, and it only affects about 30% of the entire city staff. Many of you know that I am an IT, I own a business, IT consulting business, and we do a lot of huge projects with state agencies. It is usually very difficult to have something that is this successful in the first rollout. And so my, congratulations and commend to the staff, IT as well as business staff, and to the consultants for doing a great job. I also want to mention Central Square and Sapper Consulting for doing a great job during a very difficult time when people sometimes have to work virtually long distance due to COVID. Being able to pull together a project like this is extremely difficult given COVID environment. So thank you, everyone. And if Patricia, if you would like to delve into some more detail, please go ahead.
Scott, would you like to?
Yes, hi, Councilmember Bowie. Thank you so much for the update. This is Patricia Song. I really don't have much to add. I just want to say this is a great teamwork. It took a lot of the entire team's effort, including, like you mentioned, our software vendor, our consultants, our part-time employee, and then, many, many city staff. So it's just an honor for me to work with such an excellent team and bring this project to life on time and on budget. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is Scott Stiles, city manager. First of all, I just wanted to thank Councilman Bowie for serving on our subcommittee, helping us track this project. He and his company have a lot of expertise in this, so it was really, I know, of great benefit to our team to be able to bounce ideas off him and make sure that we were kind of staying on track on the right direction, checking the right metrics. And then I really wanted to thank Patricia Song, our finance director, and Anand Rao, our IT director, and really all of their staff. I had stopped in here the day after Christmas. City Hall was closed, but there were a number of the staff in here doing work, trying to get ready for the go live as we were getting ready to roll out the new payroll system. So it's just been a tremendous amount of work over really a couple years now, and really a lot of credit goes to them. This project, it's incredibly complicated, and the fact that we had people that really kind of understood it and could work with the consultants to get through get through this process along with Councilman Bowie was really a great help to us. So my compliments to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. We will go around the horn for matters. Any other matters from anyone? George Brightingham, anything?
Yeah, just a couple. Happy New Year to everybody. We're coming into 2020. We're in 2022, and we went dark for much of December, and so I just want to give a shout out to our local real estate agents in District 1, the Tackneys, for putting on Jingle Jam. They did another outstanding job. Lynn and Josh Lindsay, I want to give them a shout out. They coordinated the annual Christmas light contest, and it was a rounding success. They did an outstanding job, and so I just want to give them a shout out as well. And that's about it.
Thank you. Thad, any other matters to add?
Yes, just want to, let everyone know that even though Omicron is spreading really fast, and of course, with that, it's affecting some of our staff, but I would like to encourage people to be vaccinated. If you go through the booster shot, it will increase the chance to withstand the Omicron version or variant. And I have quite a few friends who test positive, and they have been able to overcome that rather quickly. So I would strongly recommend that. Then on the other note, we do not want the COVID to control our life. And so I think while we are cautious, do everything we can in accordance with guidance from CDC and from the State Health Agency. But I think we want to keep things moving forward. And we do not want it to impact our social fabrics as well as our economy. But just keep monitoring, be cautious, wear masks whenever we can, especially when we are indoor as mandated by the states. And other than that, vaccinate everyone. Thank you.
Next meeting?
What's the next?
Stephanie?
Nothing for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim, anything?
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just Happy New Year to everybody. This is the first council meeting of the year, and I'm looking forward for many more successful and feedback from the community. Just want to share a little bit for the past couple of weeks, even when we went dark. I myself have been helping the community liaison to outreach for especially redistricting in the business community through media outlet. We have been working with the Daily News and a couple TV outlets to talk about redistricting, as well as to have a schedule for the public hearings that are available, and as well as the information if the public would like to give feedback. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. General Counsel, we had a closed session. Do we have anything to report out?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the City Council, we did have a closed session on existing litigation listed on the agenda, and there is no reportable action out of that closed session.
Thank you. City Manager Scott Stiles.
Mr. Mayor, no, and I would like Assistant City Manager Maria Stipe just to remind us when our next community cleanup is coming up.
Yes, we have a community cleanup day scheduled for Saturday, January 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Mitchell Elementary School at, that would be 13451 Taft Street. And we will be accepting everything from large bulky items to everyday clutter. So you can bring appliances, printers, computers, furniture, mattresses, carpets, anything that you have that you want to clear out of your house and dump. It's going to be a drive-through event. You can drop it off at the event, and the only thing that we're not accepting is hazardous waste and green waste. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Scott?
That's it.
All righty, thank you everyone for hanging in there with us tonight in this, going back to the format with the teleconference and the Zoom stuff. So thank you very much for hanging in there, and we will stand adjourned until next time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone.